Okay, let's look at adding slurs in Sibelius. Remember that slurs are different than ties. Ties can be created by hitting the Enter key on a Mac or coming down here and selecting ties on the Virtual 10 keypad. Ties tie rhythmic values together. So for example, in this score, this is a tie. It looks very similar to a slur, but it's specifically a tie. Slurs are a form of articulation. So let's talk about how to add a slur. Let's say, for example, that we want to create a slur here on this D flat in the violin. We do that by just selecting S on the QWERTY keys, and that creates a slur. Now you'll notice that this slur has a box here at the end. Essentially what you can do if you want the slur to extend further is you press the space bar multiple times. Each time you press the space bar, the slur will extend one additional note. Now to go back, if you've gone too far, you use Shift and space bar to retract the slur. So it's real easy then to create slurs across multiple notes by using this technique. You can do the same thing here, create a slur, and then hit space bar until we get the slur to cover the specific notes that we want it to cover, then hit escape to get out. If you would like a slur to be upside down or inverted, you can do that by just hitting X. So select the slur and then hit X, and X will flip the slur upside down. It also does this with a variety of other things, including the stems on notes. The flip command can also be found over here under the Home tab, the Edit group, and Flip. If you want to go back later and edit a slur, you certainly can do that. The tendency is going to be that you'll want to just click on the entire slur like this. However, the temptation will be that you'll want to try to grab and move things around like this. And what this does is just most likely create problems for yourself later on. The trick in going back and editing slurs is to make sure you just have this right hand handle right here selected. Once that's selected, it's just like inputting a slur. So you can move forward using the space bar, backwards using Shift and space bar. One additional way to make a slur is by making a contiguous selection across multiple notes and then hitting S. So the way I showed you before was just selecting one note and then hitting S and using the space bar. That's a little bit more laborious than actually selecting, in this case, the whole bar, or clicking on one note, Shift clicking on the last note in the selection, and then hitting S. That'll create a slur over the entire selection. In Sibelius, crescendos and decrescendos are called hairpins. They're added to your score in the exact same manner that you added slur. Hairpins will always occur beneath the staff unless it is a vocal staff. If it's a vocal staff, the crescendo or decrescendo will appear above the staff to make room for the lyrics. To add a hairpin, you do pretty much the same thing that we did with slurs. So let's select the same D flat that we used earlier. And we're going to add a hairpin. So we use the shortcut H, and then we can extend the hairpin again by using spacebar or Shift and spacebar to reverse the hairpin, and then escape out or click outside. If we want to add a decrescendo, we do the same thing, but instead of adding an H, we go Shift H, because Shift, remember, in Sibelius does the opposite. So make our selection, go Shift H, and then again we can move the end of our decrescendo, in this case, to the right or back to the left by going spacebar or Shift and spacebar. You can also make a range selection and then add a hairpin or a crescendo, or going Shift and H, a decrescendo over that selection as well. So hairpins and slurs, single key shortcuts H and S, and both are treated very similarly in Sibelius. Next, let's look at the lines gallery. Lines can be found under the Notation tab, Lines group, and Lines. You can see there's a variety of buttons here. You only see 5 right now visible, but if you click right here on this More button, or if you hit the shortcut L, it will take you to a larger Lines menu. Here you can see really quite a few different options that are available under the Lines gallery. You'll see your slurs, your crescendos, decrescendos that we discussed, as well as a variety of other lines. Inputting lines works the same as a lot of the other objects we've talked about in Sibelius. So if you want to add a line to something, you can either load your mouse with it and then add the line, or you could make a selection and then go to your Lines menu, L, and choose the particular object you are interested in adding to your score. So again, 2 ways to add, either loading your mouse or making a selection and then adding this object or line to your selection. Also over here where it says All, you can go and drill down a little bit and find specific lines that you may be looking for. So for example, if you're actually looking for specific kinds of lines, you can find those there. Glissandi, various ornaments, octave lines, so 8VA, that type of thing. So there are numerous available options here on the left-hand side. Normally I just have all selected and learn to find the specific line that I'm looking for the score that I'm working on. Most lines also can be extended or retracted, just like we did with the hairpins or the slurs. So if I make a selection, add, for example, a trill to that selection, I can extend that selection out by hitting spacebar and then retracting that by going Shift and spacebar. So most lines function the same way that the hairpins and slurs did. Objects in Sibelius generally come in 2 different types, staff or system-based objects. Sibelius 7 doesn't do a very good job, especially in the Lines menu, of differentiating between a staff line or a system line. So a staff object attaches to a stave and only appears in a specific part. System objects apply to the whole score and can be found in numerous locations. So for example, staff lines may include things like slurs, hairpins, trills, that kind of thing. And system lines may be first and second endings or things of that nature that will apply to all the players in your piece. You can find staff and system lines by clicking on the dialog launcher button right here under Notations and the Lines group. And now you can see that staff lines and system lines have been split, and you can see the differences between the two. So it's worth taking a moment of time and just going through and clicking on this dialog launcher button and looking at the type of staff lines there are, as well as the types of system lines that are available in Sibelius.